Hi, welcome to Drama Means Podcast. Today we're talking about the 2023 Japanese movie, My Beautiful Man, Eternal. It is a continuation of the story, My Beautiful Man, and today we're going to be talking about the movie that was just released for international fans. Today, drama means communication, drama means finding yourself, drama means unconventional love.
So, a quick summary of My Beautiful Man, Eternal, and actually start with the series because it gives a lot of context to the movie. But the series revolves around a young high schooler named Hira, who is pretty awkward, socially inept, we'll say, and he can't really connect to any of his classmates. He's kind of run over, kind of a whipping boy. And he meets this other classmate who is literally the most beautiful man he's ever laid eyes on. And he is instantly smitten, instantly taken by this gorgeous young man. And it becomes a little bit of a one-sided romance. But what Hira doesn't understand is that Kioi, this young, beautiful man that he's become obsessed with, actually has feelings for him as well. And the two start kind of an unconventional romance. So when we pick up the movie, Hira is now in college, and Kioi is pursuing a career in acting. And the two are seemingly together, happy couple. But Hira still has a bit of an unhealthy relationship with Kioi. He kind of doesn't quite believe it's all true. It's all come true. The man that he's so obsessed with really loves him back, which causes a little bit of conflict in the relationship, and that's where the movie kind of exists. So first off, can I say this one for me is very hard to summarize because, and not in a bad way, but not a lot really happens in the movie and in the series. Like it's very relationship based. It's based about, their feelings for each other, and they're kind of like, it was like unrequited love, not unrequited love, mutual love. Like there's a interesting dynamic between the two, but it's actually hard to like summarize.
And we all know that Ryan's not so strong point is the lovey-dovey aspect of shows.
How dare you? I can do emotions. I can do lovey-dovey emotions. It's just...
You don't enjoy it.
I enjoy it, but also, like, it helps if there's other stuff going on and there's, like, goals that are being accomplished and characters are driving towards things. That helps me a little bit.
Yeah, so we're going to start on what we like about the movie and the show, because it's hard to talk about the movie without talking about season 1 and season 2 of the drama. So we'll mainly talk about the movie, but I think that we're going to have to drop some other things from season 1 and season 2 in order to really get the whole picture, because the movie is just a continuation of the story, so you need the full story in order to understand the movie.
Yeah, we're going to be reviewing the movie mostly, or at least that's what we're kind of ranking today as the movie and talking about. But yeah, they're all so intertwined. This could honestly be one season of TV. Between the first season and the second season of the movie, it could just be a season of television. Like nothing really changes dynamic-wise other than like the state of their relationship from one to the other.
Yeah. So I'm going to get started with, I think the best part of the drama is the acting. I think it's the most complete, because story-wise, like it started out really strong, it kind of meanders, and then you get the fluffy stuff in season 2, and then the movie is just kind of like, oh, okay. So, but the acting, I really appreciate. I think their chemistry is really strong. I really like Riku's acting. And Yusei Yagi is like, he won an award for season 1 for his character of Kioi. So, and his acting is really strong, but I also think that Riku really deserves like to be, praised for his acting. And so I think they really make the characters work.
I would agree with that. I think if they were going for creepy romance, boy, did the actors nail that.
Yeah, so actually a lot of fans or a lot of people who've watched the show have issues with this particular drama because Kiyoe starts out as the bully, and they don't appreciate the bullying, and they don't, agree with it. So a lot of people have issues with that. And then on the other hand, Hira is a stalker, and so it's just this kind of really unhealthy relationship that started, or it started from an unhealthy place. So yeah, I think a lot of people out, especially in the international audience, they don't really like that dynamic. And I understand that. I understand because Kiyoe did very much start out as like a bully and really like took advantage of Hira, yet Hira really enjoyed being taken advantage of. Yeah, so.
Yeah, to me, I think early, and this is season 1 and not the movie, but it felt like early on, I don't know. Yes, they bullied him, but to me, it felt more of a caricaturization of how when you have your friend group in high school, everyone falls into a role. And so there's kind of like the leader of the group and the whipping boy of the group and the class clown of the group and the rich kid of the group. Like everyone kind of fills a role. And like they definitely took advantage of Hira, and like kind of he was the whipping boy of the group. But he also overly embraced that role. Like, I didn't get the feeling that if Hira would have said, no, I don't want to get your ginger ale, that they would have, like, bullied him until he did. I feel like they just wouldn't have been friends with him. And so, in order to be our friend, you have to be our whipping boy. That's not healthy. But to me, it's not the same as bullying necessarily. It's a little different. It's a little ick. But, yeah, when I watched it, at least my experience of watching it, I wasn't like, oh, bullies. It's like, high school douchebags.
Yeah.
Like...
And there's a lot of those. But also, like, Kiyoe did stand up for Hira, like, when other people were trying to basically break into the group, because it's more like, oh, Hira is part of our group. We're allowed to ask him to do things for us. But other people who's not part of our group is not allowed to ask Hira to do anything for them because Hira is ours. He's not anyone else's. So when Kiyoe kind of stood up for Hira, like, it was like, don't bully my person.
Yeah. But then I do think, like, as you learn more about their relationship and you realize that Kiyoe has feelings for Hira, that he doesn't really know what to do with, and a lot of that behavior is coming from a place where he's like, I don't know why I have feelings for you. Like, it's weird. You're a weirdo, and you're a stalker, and you're obsessed with me, but yet I have feelings for you as well. And so you realize that both of them are acting from this place of insecurity. And I do think that buys back some of it, as far as, like, when you look back, go, oh, that's why he didn't know how to deal with him in these certain ways. And it was much easier to, just treat him like a stepping stool sometimes. So,
Yeah.
Not condoning bullying in any way, but at the same time, like, when you think about it in the context of this is a high school drama in the first season, high school kids are screwed up. They mess with each other. The girls do it, guys do it. Like, it's just, they form cliques and they form groups and people fall into roles. And it's very hard to stand up for yourself and get out of those roles. So, but I think back to the acting, when I say, like, if they wanted a creepy character, like, they definitely got it, is that I do think that both of these actors set out to make a character and they both succeeded.
Yes, definitely. Especially Riku, the actor, is very, like, lively of a person and very, like, energetic. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's, like, very extroverted. And so he really pulls off his role of this, like, introvert, like, kind of hates this world and doesn't feel like he belongs in this world. Like, that kind of character. And then, like, this guy that didn't have anything that he looked forward to, and then he found somebody, and that, like, just became his whole world, which is kind of understandable for me in terms of, like, if you don't like anything and then all of a sudden there's something you like, of course you're going to be obsessed with that thing. So it's just like, his obsession became just one person. Whereas, like, like I get obsessed with a lot of stuff. I'm obsessed with dramas, and I'm obsessed with, K-pop or, music or whatever. And it's just kind of like, you just kind of let that consume your life for a long time until you kind of adjust to your life again with that in it, rather than that only being your life. I think they both do play their characters really well.
Yeah, it's interesting because the more I think about this movie and dramas, the more I think about this one, the more I realize I think they're going for a caricature. And they took a archetype and went really far with it, I think on purpose, to kind of demonstrate the relationship in the most polarizing way possible. Like, there's a way to do this whole drama quite a bit more subtly, and I don't think that was the choice. Whether you agree with that choice or not is up to you. Like, you can decide whether or not the drama was a success, but I do think they set out to make the show they made. Like, if I was making this show, I don't think I would have made him so stalkery. And like, there's so many moments, especially in the movie, where I'm like, how are you in a relationship except for like walking on eggshells and just apologizing all the time for your very existence? Like, no one is this insecure. But I do feel like they were trying to draw out that drama by kind of going over the top a little bit with it. Which is interesting because a lot of Japanese stuff feels like it's so subtle. Like, I'm trying to think of the movie. It was the Joe Odagiri movie where they walk across. It's like, I don't know, they walk across Tokyo. It's him and this guy are going to turn himself in. And it's so subtle and it's so like well acted and subtle. And I'm like, that's what I think of when I think of Japanese movies. I think of just these very subtle moments. And this one was a little weird for me because it felt a little over the top.
This is also based off of a manga, so I don't know if that has anything to do with the exaggeration of the characters, but yeah, I don't know if I ever told you that it was based off of a manga.
No, I don't think I knew that.
Okay. So I don't think it's actually enough of it, but I do like Kyoi's growth. In season 1, he's very angsty. He gets angry like a lot, and he takes a lot of his anger out on Hira. And then as, the show's going and into season 2 and then, or into the movie, his anger is like, I'm starting to really understand how Hira works, even though sometimes it gets on my nerves and I want him to be a certain way and he's not giving me that. He's rarely just angry at Hira. And he's trying to communicate with Hira more and like actually sitting down and having a conversation with him and telling him what's on his mind. Even though a lot of times he'd much rather have Hira like guess what's on his mind. And we feel like that. Like, we want our significant other to like know what we're feeling and thinking, and we don't have to like spell everything out to them. And I think that, like, Kyoi is feeling that with Hira. And that he only really has one outburst in My Beautiful Man Eternal. And so it's kind of see that emotional growth within Kyoi.
I mean, for sure, from season 1 through to the movie, like, he definitely becomes an adult in a way that maybe Hira doesn't, or a lot of people in relationships don't. I think a lot of people exist in relationships where they do want their partner to just read their mind and guess and like, oh, you should know that when I'm quiet, I'm mad. It's like, I know, but sometimes when you're quiet, you're just quiet. And like, I don't know. I'm not a mind reader. And I thought it was actually a really good piece in the movie for him to go, I'm mad at him, but it's not fair because I'm mad at him because he's not doing what I expect him to do without me saying it. And that's just not going to work. And so I have to try something else. And maybe that won't work either, but like, I can't actually just keep doing what I'm doing as far as like just getting upset that you're not saying the right thing and then having an outburst and being mad. It's like, well, that doesn't get us anywhere because I still love you. Like, even if I storm out of the room, I still love you. So what good does it do to storm out of the room if we haven't actually solved the problem that's leading me to do that in the first place? So I thought that was kind of a very grown-up adult part of the movie that I will say, like, was nicely placed in the movie as opposed to the series, because the series, they're in high school, they're kids. And then by the time we get to the movie, like, you know, Kyoi's pursuing his career, Hira's in college, they're starting to become adults, and it's nice to try to solve problems as an adult finally.
I do like a lot of the fluffy moments that they have. Like, you know, when Kioi kind of like back hugs Hira, and I'm like, oh, I love that. I love back hugs, by the way.
Sucker for the back hug. That's going deep K-drama back hug territory. When they wouldn't let the idols kiss each other on camera, so they just back hugged every time.
No, it's just nice to see because Kioi is like, in other people's eyes, he's, you know, this popular guy that's the word?
Hard. Tough.
Tough.
Rough.
Yeah, like
Too
just
cool for school.
Yeah, like just really like well put together, you know, he's especially masculine, and to see like that vulnerability when he's home with Hira, that's like really nice and soft, and just, you know, you can just see and feel their relationship and how much Kioi is like just in love with Hira.
Soft was the exact word that I was thinking of, is that there's a softness to him when the two of them are together, especially in the movie. When they're home by themselves, the two of them, there's a softness to him that we never saw in the series with his high school friends or when he was on set or whatever. And that, to me, was the thing where I could buy, oh, this is the relationship he wants, because truthfully, for most of the show, I didn't quite understand why either of these two liked each other. Like, I get that Kyoi's beautiful and that Hira's like, wow, that guy is so pretty. I get it. But and Kioi says several times in the series and in season 1 of like, the way he looked at me drew me in, because the way he was looking at me, like, oh my gosh, like he worshipped me. Like, who doesn't like to be worshipped? So I get it. But a lot of times I didn't quite understand, like, wait, why do these two love each other so much? But then you would see them in these moments where there was a softness and he got to let his guard down. And I was like, I could see that as a thing. Like, I can be myself around you. I can let my guard down around you. I totally get how that could be a reason to want a relationship, a reason to be in love with someone. Like, that made sense. That made it work for me. I will say some of the sweet moments come across as little creepy moments. Like, when they're in the tub together and it's like sexy times, and it's like, and it's a great moment because Kyoi's asking for what he wants. Like, he wants his man to be masculine with him, and he wants, like, hey, like, I want you to handle me. I want you to be the man for a second. But Hira's so creepy. He's just so creepy. And I'm like, I get it that he's a creepy character, but oh man, like, this is, like, he's creepy.
So the whole time I was watching the movie, I'm like, Hira can be a psychopath. Like, literally, like, there's just this fine line between him and the culprit, like Anna's fan.
Yeah, I can't remember what his name is, but the actress's, like, psycho fan.
Yeah, and like there's that just fine line, and it just so happens that Hira doesn't go try to murder people or kidnap people, whereas the other fan does, right? But like they're pretty much the same kind of person. So it's just this, like, you know, it is a little hard to watch. Ultimately, like, someone who's like could possibly go and kill people and go and kidnap people, like, and then his romance, and then you're like, I have to feel lovey-dovey for this, you know. Yeah. Anyway, so I understand when you say he's creepy, and like Kioi calls him creepy, and
he calls him Stalker. Like, he's like, oh, that's his pet name for him, is, hey, Stalker.
It's so funny because, like, I also like how, like, Kioi, his way of saying I love you to Hira is telling him he's creepy.
They definitely have a thing. Oh my gosh, it reminds me of, we used to have this conversation in the writer's room, which was the difference between a stalker and, like, someone that like a pursuer, like someone who's pursuing you as like a dating opportunity, is how hot they are. Because like it was that show You on Netflix, and there was a huge debate of like, it's a stalker show, like the guy's a stalker.
Yeah.
But then like a lot of women watched that show and really loved that main character, and you're like, oh, because he's hot. If he was ugly, he would just be a stalker. Have you seen the supercut of Mrs. Doubtfire where they turn it into a comedy?
Yes.
That's what came into my mind when you were like, he's like so close to being a psycho killer, and like that supercut of like Mrs. Doubtfire as Robin Williams is the bad guy. It's like, oh, it's so close.
Yeah.
Like, so I feel like there's a version of this movie where Hida is like a psycho killer, like he's the bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Not to like talk shit about it or the character, but it's I don't know how I would feel if I had someone like Hira pursuing me. I think I would be very scared, honestly.
Yeah, but Kiyoe was into him.
True.
And we don't realize that. I think in season 1 they do a good job of holding that back long enough where you're like, oh man, this guy's obsessed with this other dude. And then they go into Kiyoe's point of view, and you learn he's actually 100% down. Like, he's into him too, and he just wants him to make the move. Like, stop being a stalker and ask me out.
Yeah.
Stop being a creep and kiss me already, which is nothing close to what Hira is thinking in his brain. He's like, well, I couldn't possibly. There's no way on earth he'd be into me.
Well, I have a tip for the world.
Hot tip coming in.
So, for those who have a crush on somebody, right? So, I had a friend, this was a long time ago when I was in college, and my friend had another friend that she worked with, and she knew he was into her. And they're kind of friends, they kind of started hanging out, and my friend was into it. My friend was like, okay, I'm just ready for him to make a move, or like, you know, tell me that he's into me and not just let me kind of sit here and know already, right? And so he took his sweet fucking time, and she was like, you know what? I'm over it. Like, I'm not into him anymore. He doesn't have the guts to tell me that he's into me. I'm over it, and I'm ready to move on. And he is still, like, sitting around, like, pining over her and, like, trying to play the friend card, trying to get into her pants or whatever, and until she was just sick of it and had like just lost all interest of him. And so if you guys have a crush out there, don't just sit there and like, oh, I hope this person will like me back. I just need to be their friend first. No, that's not how it works, guys. It's not. Just fucking get out there and say, hey, I like you. Will you date me? If you don't want to date me, okay, I'm going to move on, and you should move on, and it'll be fine and dandy because no one's that important. But God, I sound like a jaded old woman.
You sound like a jaded old woman, but please continue.
But if you have a crush on somebody, just fucking tell them. Please. Great
advice. Unless you're ugly or creepy, then don't tell anybody that you're in love with them, because they'll think you're ugly and creepy.
And the stalker.
And the stalker.
No, don't say that. That's so fucked up. Don't say that.
I'm joking, only somewhat.
Anyway, so that's my tip of the day or week or whatever. It's just a tip.
I do think, bringing this back to the show,
okay.
The movie, I do think a lesson of this movie is go after the things you want and communicate the things you want. Because even with Hira's professional career, he's not really learning the lesson that well, but the lesson he should be learning is, you want to be a photographer? Then go shoot photographs. If you want an apprenticeship, you need to go talk to the photographer. Like, he doesn't want to go talk to this photographer. Oh, I don't want him to see my stuff. But he desperately wants to be in this guy's league. Well, you're never going to be invited to the table if you don't find those opportunities to go when you are invited. And so a lot of people, whether it's relationships or career or school or whatever, let those little opportunities get away from them because, oh, I couldn't, I got invited to this mixer and I shouldn't go. And you're like, well, there's going to be 10 people at that mixer that you're really going to want to meet. And even if you only have a conversation with one of them, it's one more person than you talked to yesterday. And it's really hard to get into a relationship with someone if you don't ask. It's really hard to get a job if you don't ask. And so I think if one thing thematically in the show is that Kiyoe, I think, learns, and we get to learn through him, is I'm never going to get what I want out of this if I don't ask, or if I don't demand an answer for these things. And so that, folding back into your advice, I think that's a pretty big thematic of, especially of the movie. It felt like if there's one thematic of the movie, it's ask for what you want, because you'll never get it otherwise.
Yeah. As for the look and the aesthetic of the show, I really enjoyed it.
I think the filmmaking's pretty good.
Yeah.
They do a few things sometimes that are it's maybe over edited in places, but for the most part, the pacing really fits well with the tone, and the cinematography is really great.
Yeah.
But filmmaking wise, this one. Yeah,
this one's really good.
You know what I appreciated? It wasn't overly artistic. I think sometimes my beef with some Japanese films are they're trying to be too artsy, they're trying too creative, and sometimes you're like, hey, just tell me the story. Just get over yourself. I know you think you're an artist and you must show me 6 minutes of wheat blowing in the wind, but just tell me the story. And I thought this one did a good job of being artistic, especially because Hira wants to be a photographer, and I think sometimes that was reflected in the filmmaking of oh yeah, this scene was shot by a photographer. But they didn't overdo it. Now it is time to talk about what we didn't like, besides Hira being a super creeper.
Yeah. Well, it's also about Hira's character. We've gone through season 1, season 2, and now we're into the movie. And honestly, his growth is not enough. It's not strong enough. It doesn't go fast enough, and we're just frustrated. We're frustrated along with Kiyoe, I think.
Yeah, and if that was their intention, if their intention was to put us in the point of view of Kiyoe, to be frustrated with Hira, then I get it. But Hira is kind of presented to us as the main character. And when you do that, I expect the growth to become from him. And it just doesn't. I don't think... I was saying this before, it was it felt like everything that happens to him is kind of handed to him. He doesn't go meet with the photographer. His classmate is hey, the photographer's pissed, you need to go meet with him. He doesn't get his internship. The photographer offers it to him. He doesn't get to shoot the pictures he wants. The photographer kind of gives it to him. That's the only time he really kind of affects it a little bit toward the end. And so I'll give you that one.
The photographer forces him to take pictures of Kiyoe. And Kiyoe had to be fucking take my picture. Stop dilly-dallying.
Yeah.
And then he was okay. And then he realizes that he can do it. It's just
He'd earned a couple things along the way there where it's he set the two up together and he, told that photographer oh, if I get this, I want you to do me this favor or whatever. But those moments, it just felt like there was always coming from something external to him, not him coming through a realization and then changing. And I know it's probably more true to life that we all walk through life and just have people grab us by the scruff of the neck and go, hey, asshole, do something. But I think as characters, you want to see that moment or that epiphany or that growth, and then the next scene or the next handful of scenes is me going to change my outlook or going to change my circumstances and pulling myself up by my bootstraps. That's what we want to see out of characters.
Yeah.
We just didn't get it out of Hira.
Yeah. I just wanted something stronger. I wanted more growth with their relationship as well. I think this movie... I wish that this movie wasn't a continuation of season 1 and season 2, and it barely any time has really passed. I want them to be already just having a life together, and I want a separate story. I want them on the next level, and it feels like they're still on that first level. in their relationship. And I know has been a little tiny bit of growth in their relationship, but it just wasn't strong enough, and I just needed more. I wanted more of not a married couple, but somewhat a relationship where they already get each other, considering Hira doesn't even think that they're really going to last, and things like that.
Well, he's still stuck in this denial stage of their relationship where he's like, I still don't believe that you are into me, and I still feel like I have to earn it every day. Now, there's part of that feels healthy. There is a part of a relationship that you should feel like you have to earn your partner's love and admiration every single day as you do nice things for each other and you're there for each other. And he's like, hey, no, this is what partners do for each other. But that's kind of all he is invested in is, I need to make sure that by the end of the day, he knows that he's appreciated, or else he'll just leave me, which means you have no faith in your partner's feelings. And all the way up until nearly the end of the movie, he still really has no faith in Kyoi's feelings at all, and Kyoi's really hurt by that. And it's like, really, by now? We've been through 2 seasons in a movie, and you still don't get it? I get that you're insecure, I get that you're awkward, and you can't understand that someone would love you. But wow, dude, get with the program. And that's where the growth was missing for me.
Yeah. So I also want to talk about the structure. So in season 1, the structure of you see Hira's side, and then slowly you realize that Kyoi is, also in love with Hira, and then Kyoi realizing that Hira just wants to be a fan or a servant and things like that, and then he has his big blow up, and then they have that emotional tension and that scene, and where Kyoi just kind of breaks down and says everything on his mind, and it's almost like an emotional regurgitation. So that structure for season 1 works because we're newly experiencing their love, their relationship, their dynamic. And so when it gets to season 2, where they're trying to do the same kind of structure, where it's things are misunderstood, and then Kyoi has his, and I'm pretty sure the reason why Yusei Yagi had got his award was because of that big blow-up scene, his emotional, breakthrough. And so I think they wanted more of that in season 2, so it's the same structure. Then in the movie, it's the same structure, and Kyoi has the big blow-up. And except for in season 2, in the movie, it didn't work because it needs growth. Rather than the same thing that they're giving us, they're just trying to feed us the same thing. So they're forcing this emotional structure, this emotional blow up every single season or movie, and it just doesn't work anymore. It worked really well in season 1. It didn't work in season 2 or the movie.
It needed an evolution. It needed a changing of the guard, a state change, something storytelling wise to tell us that the movie, the show has grown up a little bit. Because it did feel like, and we've said it a couple times already, of when you're in high school, your mentality is a certain way. And then once you get out of high school, your mentality changes a little bit because you're heading towards adulthood. You're heading towards responsibility in the real world. And it felt like in season 1, that was a real high school way of handling the emotional structure. And then in the movie, especially in the movie, it felt like, well, we've outgrown this. How do we bring these 2 characters together and pull them apart in a way that's not just misunderstanding, miscommunication, pent-up frustration, blow-up? That ultimately doesn't amount to much because in the end they love each other and they're not going anywhere. And it's not that type of thing where the blow-up is going to last for a long time and they're never going to speak to each other again. So they're right back to being in bed together, and you're like, oh, so what was the point of that? What was the point of the structure? It felt a little, whereas it worked in season 1, it felt a little juvenile in season 2 in the movie.
Yeah. Especially when, after the big blow-up, he just shows back up the next day, and Hira doesn't do anything to earn him back. So Hira doesn't do anything. He just sat around, and then Kioi just was asleep in the living room.
And he didn't chase him. And he was like, why didn't you chase me? But I realized, like, that's not who you are. And, like, again, with Kyoi's growth, I get it. It's like he's realizing I can't just blow up at this guy and leave. He's never going to be the one who chases me because he expects me to blow up and leave. Like, that's what he expects this relationship to end in. That sooner or later, I will get fed up and I will say, I hate you, and I will run out and I will never return. And then he will just go upon his life wishing upon a star that it was different, but not doing anything about it. That's just who he is. So from Kyoi's perspective, great. But from the storyteller's perspective and Hira's perspective, it gets a little juvenile.
Yeah. So that part was pretty disappointing for me. I also felt like I wanted to see more of them together. You know, we touch a lot upon Hira trying to, you know, his feelings of like inferiority, and then especially watching his mentor, the photographer, you know, be amazing at his job, and then himself just like beating himself up over not being as good. We see a lot of that, and then we see like the whole Anna story and her boyfriend, and like, not that I don't care about it, it's just that I want to see more interaction between the two leads. It's their movie, and they're barely like in it together. I feel like they have a few moments where they, you know, show a little home life, and then they have like all the problems that they have with work and things like that, but I don't get enough of the two interacting together and having like, you know, the conversations that like couples have. And I know Hira's not like your normal, you know, person that you can easily like have a conversation with, but you know, it should be a point where, since you're a couple now, like there needs to be more of that. And so it's like, I don't really care. I don't really want to watch Anna and her boyfriend and then her, you know, like being sad. Like, I don't really care.
That's not who the show's about. Like, that story's only as good in as how it affects our main guys. Like, the fact that it kind of brought them back together at one point, because he brings them together, puts Anna and her boyfriend in the same room, which Kyoi's kind of part of that, and it kind of like shows to Kyoi that Hira is willing to like step out for the people he cares about and really understands relationships, even if he might not understand his own relationship. Like, he understands these two want to be in the same room together and want to patch things up, and it gives Kyoi a little hope that, oh, you understand relationships, you just don't understand ours. So I get it, but at the same time, I agree with you completely. It's like, why we're investing so much in characters that are side characters, and it's not a 20 episode show where you just have so much time to really dive into side characters. It's over the course of a pretty short series and movie. Like, wait, why are we spending so much time on this? It should be pretty quick.
Yeah.
I will say one element I really didn't like about the show, and it wasn't because I didn't like I didn't like the character, but it's not that I don't believe that character exists, is the whole kidnapping thing. It felt like we've watched, 6 episodes in season 1, 4 episodes in season 2, and a movie. There's been no guns, violence, really. I mean, there's been like high school fights. And now we're doing a kidnapping. I mean, this is like 15 hours into watching the show, and now we're doing a kidnapping where it's a violent psychopath movie suddenly. And it just felt so out of place. Like, imagine watching like Saved by the Bell. And it's a high school drama. And it's about kids in high school. And then suddenly the school gets attacked by terrorists. And you're like, well, this isn't the show I signed up for. This is a little out of place. Can a school get attacked by terrorists? Sure, but it's not the show I'm watching. And so it felt, I understand the character and what they were trying to do with him, as like showing kind of the difference between Hira's obsession with Kyoi and this guy's obsession with Anna, and how one is obviously returned love and the other is clearly not. But it just made it feel like such a different show and so out of place. I was like, I knew they were going to go there, and I was like, please don't go there.
Yeah, I was having anxiety when that guy first showed up in season 2, and I was like, oh yeah, he's gonna be cray. And I'm like, I don't want that. And of course they did it anyway, which I never read the manga, so I don't actually know how the manga was. But just seeing that guy, and it's like, ugh. And the thing is, it happens. There are a lot of crazy fans out there, and crazy fans do a lot of weird, creepy things. So I understand that that's the case. But also, like, it's weird that he kidnapped Keely and then called Anna to show up, and then Anna, like, told Hira about it, but, like...
No, but again, it's like they could have demonstrated this idea they were going for with the difference between these two. Let's just call them both stalkers for simplicity's sake. Like, Hira's a stalker, this guy's a stalker, right? And they're both creepy, and they stand outside of set, and they're both fanboys. And there's a way to demonstrate the difference of those two. They just decided to go, like, the biggest, archest way possible. Like, there was a way to do that in a conversation where, they sneak on set, and the guy gets inappropriate with Anna, and she's like, get the fuck away from me. And he's like, and Hira's like, oh, that's way different than me. There's a million ways they could have done it in a real way that was true to the tone of the show. They just decided to make it like a horror movie suddenly, like a jump scares and stuff. It wasn't the show we were watching, and it just really took me out of the movie. And I was like, man, this is a wrong turn. Like, I get what you're going for. I just, like, swing at a huge miss.
Okay, so now it is rating time. We're only rating the movie. We're not rating season 1 and season 2. But I will tell you what my rating for season 1 is.
Do it. I knew you were going to do that. I knew there was a but at the end of that sentence. We're not going to be rating the series, but I'll tell you what I thought of it anyway.
Okay, I'm going to rate this. I'm only going to rate season 1 and the movie. I'm not doing season 2. Season 1 for me was in the buffet line. And the movie for me is, honestly, it's in between On Board Karaoke and Stepping Out for Fresh Air. But I'm leaning towards Stepping Out for Fresh Air.
Okay, yeah, I think my rating for just the movie, I'm not going to say what it would be for the whole series, because I don't really know, but it would be higher. I think if you're rating season 1, I thought season 1 was the best. Definitely. I thought they did some really clever things with point of view. I did not see the Kyoe point of view, oh, I'm in love with him too at that point. I didn't see that coming, and I really enjoyed how that was spilled out. So season 2 would be higher, but if we're just talking about the movie, I would have to give it Land Sickness. It's just not a very good movie. Like, I like the characters because of what they've earned in season 1 and 2, and I like the actors. But as a movie by itself, or even as a continuation of the story, it's just kind of unnecessary. Like, I don't really feel like they needed to give us the movie. They could have figured out a way to wrap up season 2 in a really nice bow that wouldn't have made them have a movie. Of course, they wanted to do a movie, make some money. Why not? More content for the fans. But it felt like a very unnecessary step in the whole process. So, unfortunately, Land Sickness for me.
Okay.
Is there any other final thoughts on this one? I think we kind of covered everything.
We covered everything. I do have to say I really like the actors and how they interact with each other. Like, even now, Yusei Yagi is in the group Fantastics by Exile Tribe. And every time Fantastics has a concert, Riku goes. And
that's cool.
Yeah, and I love that. And I, like, obviously they've been coworkers for a few years now, and then they could be friends. They don't have to be friends, but I just like that they still kind of support each other of what they do, and Riku always still likes, like, all of Yusei Yagi's like Instagram posts. He's like sometimes one of the first people to like the post. So it's just like kind of nice to see, because there's been a lot of other BL actors, once they stop working with each other, it's as if they're strangers. They don't like act like they even know each other. They won't like each other's posts on Instagram. Sometimes they don't even follow each other. And I just kind of like seeing that, like, even if you're not like working on something together or partners anymore, you're still allowed to like be friends. You know what I mean? And I like seeing that.
I don't think that's just a BL actor thing. That feels like such a... When a cast is together, and I've witnessed this firsthand, when a cast is together, unless they hate each other, they are very close. And it's almost like a brotherhood, sisterhood. Like, they really get close. They spend every day. You spend a lot of time on set. And actors spend a lot of time in the green room together. They spend a lot of time together, day in and day out, for months on end. But a lot of times when the show's over, those people who are just like, we are friends forever, they never speak to each other again. And it's not because they dislike each other, it's not because they hate each other, it's because everyone moves on to new projects, and you spend 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, with another set of brothers and sisters. And you just don't keep up with them anymore. And so I do think it is kind of a cast thing, that a lot of times, once you're kind of done working together, it's out of sight, out of mind. And it happens to all of us in professions, but it does feel like it happens to cast a lot, because they've got a lot going on. And like I said, they go on to make new shows with new people, and that other family is kind of their old family. So it is kind of cool when you look back and see, like, oh, these two actors, like, were on the show 15 years ago, and they're still just palling around together. Like, that's really cool.
Yeah. So that's all I have to say, but I love them. I think they have great chemistry. They're really silly, like all the behind the scenes of them just like interacting with each other. Like Riku is a silly guy, and I think that like really brings Yusei Yagi out, and so it's just they're really cute together, even behind the scenes. And like, you know, the last concert that Fantastics had. You know, Riku went to the concert, and then they kind of like, he was backstage with Yusei Yagi, and it was just really nice to see.
So you have a recommendation this week? Something to tell everybody what they should do other than dramas?
Yes. So my recommendation is a Chinese web novel called Everyone Thinks I Like Him. It is also a BL. There's actually a very similar one to this one called Waiting for You Online. The storylines are very similar, but one is not toxic and one is super toxic. So I am recommending the not toxic one, which is Everyone Thinks I Like Him.
Wait, toxic as in the relationship is toxic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the non-toxic relationship is Everyone Thinks I Like Him, where it's this guy, he's always like number two, like he's second to his brother, he's second to this guy in high school, he's second to the same guy in college, like he's always just number two, and he's always striving to be number one, and he just cannot beat this guy. And then he gets pretty obsessed with number one because he just tries to beat him, and he's like very good looking, but he's number two good looking because the number one guy is also number one good looking. And it's just this kind of, you know, this kind of rivalry turned into romance, but it's very like it's not toxic. They, you know, talk to each other, they respect each other, they, you know, they're there for each other. It's really a good read if you like light and fluffy and just, you know, but like a mature relationship build. This is your book. If you're looking for a toxic relationship with similar dynamic, the other one, Waiting for You Online, is the book you want to read. So depends if you want toxicity or a healthy relationship. So there you go.
Knowing the universe of online, the toxic one is probably much more popular.
Most likely. But both you can read on Novel Updates. It is fan translated. So go ahead and check those books out.
And that does it for this week on the Drama Means podcast. Please join us next week when we talk about the Chinese costume drama Mysterious Lotus Casebook. See you then.
Yep, see you next week.